I think it's really easy in life and faith to convince ourselves that we're stuck where we are, that we're stalled out, that we're not making progress because we're waiting on God. Because he's just like not moving right now and we can't make progress until he does. But often the exact opposite is true and he's waiting on us. He hasn't taken away every obstacle. He hasn't broken the chains just yet, but he's waiting on us to have the courage to move, to do what we can do, and to trust him for the rest. Obedience is the pathway to God's purpose. Obedience is the pathway to God's purpose. And so if you want to move in your life, then you got to move. If you want the good life God has for you, you got to start following him toward it. You got to trust him enough to take one step forward. When he gives you that step, even if he doesn't give you step 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, even if you don't know what's coming, you got to believe him enough to take that first step and be set free. Because I think, like, if Peter wouldn't have stood up, then the chains probably would have stayed on. And so hear me out on this. If you don't do what you know God is asking you to do, if you don't take one step of obedience at a time, if you don't move from here, you might never get the chance to see all the great stuff God was going to do in your life, that he wants to do in your life, that you didn't know he was going to do in your life, because you'll be stuck there. And man, that's an easy place to be. I think we say things all the time like, oh, when I get it all figured out, when I get all my finances in order, first I got to do that, and then I'm going to give generously. I know God says this is the better way to be, and once I get all my ducks in a row, then I'm going to do that. You're not. And I don't say that to guilt you because I want something from you. I don't. I want God's best for all of you. It's what keeps me up at night and gets me up in the morning. But I can say this, like, from personal experience and pastoral experience, anything you won't do when it's hard, you won't remember to do when it's easy. Because it's just not how we function as human beings, but we love lying to ourselves about it. We love telling ourselves like, oh, you know what? If only the obstacles were removed, then I would be sprinting toward Jesus. If only I was free of these chains, then I'd be obeying and following. But it just isn't how we work. If we're not willing to take the step that's right in front of us, we're usually not able to take the ones that follow. And I look at my life. I look at like my own history of following Jesus, and largely it's a history of ups and downs and massive failures. And I think probably I would have died in that jail cell. Like, once the angel kicked me in the ribs, first of all, I would have been really offended by that. And then he was like, get up. I would have told the angel all the reasons why it was stupid to get up. I'm like, get up? Are you kidding me? I have chains. I would get up to what? And then even if you release the chains, there's bars and there's guards and there's a gate. Can I see some ID anyway? Who are you? I'm about to die. I'm too tired for this. I would have just laid down and died there. Like, good chance that it happens. And I think a lot of us probably would have. But Peter shows us obedience is a pathway to God's plans. And we do it. We move toward the good life, one step of obedience at a time, as God removes our obstacles, one obstacle at a time. So Peter stands up and then the chains fall off. And I love what happens next, mostly because I resonate so deeply with the angel in this moment. Either Peter is like groggy because he's just out of it, he's been really tired, or he has the same exact personality as my 11-year-old twins. Because what happens next is me every single day trying to get them out the door for school. Then the angel said to him, put on your clothes and sandals. He's like, I broke your chains. Would you get dressed? You're standing there in your underwear. We're not going out like that. We can't leave the house like that. Just put it on before we go into the street. And your shoes. Yes, your shoes. Where are your shoes? Your shoes are right there. Please put them on. And so then Peter puts them on. And then the angel says, wrap your cloak around you and follow me. Yes, you need it. You have to wear a coat. It's cold. Just put on the stupid coat. And finally, after Peter stands up and doesn't think that he should get dressed or put on his shoes or his coat, finally he's dressed. Peter did it. And then he followed him out of the prison. But he had no idea that what the angel was doing was really even happening. He thought he was seeing a vision. They passed the first and second guards and came to the iron gate leading to the city. It opened for them by itself, and they went through it. When they had walked the length of one street, suddenly the angel left him. Then Peter came to himself and said, now I know without a doubt that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from Herod's clutches and from everything the Jewish people were hoping would happen. So here's this day where Peter is as stuck as he could be. He's in a prison cell awaiting execution, and then God showed up. And Peter, in faith, took one step at a time. Like, he didn't even realize until a whole lot later while he was standing on the street that this was really happening. But he had enough faith to just keep doing the next thing God told him to do. Because faith is getting dressed when you don't know the destination. It's deciding I don't have to know everything to do one thing. And I think one of the most fascinating parts of this story for me is what God does do and what God doesn't do. Like, the angel shows up and breaks the chains off of Peter's wrist because Peter couldn't break his own chains. The angel takes care of knocking out the guards because Peter couldn't knock out the guards. The angel takes care of opening the prison bars and opening the gate to the prison because Peter couldn't have opened those on his own. But also the angel tells Peter to stand himself up, to get himself dressed, and to walk out of the gate on his own 2 feet. And the question is why? Like, seriously, why? It's because Peter needed to learn something in this moment that I think is powerful for us as well. It's that God will handle what you can't while handing you what you can. God will handle what you can't while handing you what you can. He will do for you what you cannot do, but he will almost never do for you what you can do, because what he wants to do in your life and through your life, he wants to do with you. He's inviting you to be a part of his mission in the world by stepping out boldly in faith, and he promises that he will meet you there when you do. And I know that's scary, but God has an incredible track record of showing up when we'll step out in faith. One of my favorite stories in the entire Bible is in 1 Samuel. There's this moment where the Philistines are oppressing Israel, and they've stolen crops and they've won some battles. And eventually they took all the Israelites' swords away. And then they're like, you know what we should do? We should make sure they can't get any more swords. And they kidnapped all the blacksmiths so no one could make them swords. And so the entire nation of Israel at this point owns 2 swords. King Saul's got one, and his son Jonathan has one. And then the Philistines attack, and Saul's panicked. He's like, we don't even have swords. We can't even get swords. We're going to lose. And so he just sits there and he does nothing. And eventually Jonathan gets frustrated. He's like, clearly we're in a God or nothing moment. Either God moves or just disaster happens. But I think trying to do something right has got to be better than doing nothing wrong. So one night he looks over at his armor bearer. He's like, what do you think? Should we just attack him? It's like, I guess. And so they walk over there, and it's not even a sneak attack. You'd think if 2 guys were going to attack 10,000, they'd at least be sneaky. No, Jonathan yells at him first. He's like, hey, we're going to kill you now. And they're like, please try that, right? And so Jonathan has this moment where he has to climb up a cliff to go attack an army with one sword and his buddy. And he knows either God is going to show up in this moment, or I'm going to be forever remembered as Prince John the Moron, which rhymes. So it's not the worst nickname ever. And then God shows up. It's crazy because the Philistines are like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why? There has to be something we don't know for these guys to be attacking. And they panic and they start running. And then there's an earthquake, and the earthquake wakes up his dad, who's sleeping under a tree far away. And Saul's like, what is going on? Why is the earth shaking? Why are the Philistines running around and running away? And everybody looks around. They're like, well, there are only 2 people missing, Saul or Jonathan and his armor bearer. And I think if it was any 2 other people, fearful, faithless Saul would have been like, they're so stupid, they deserve to die, forget about them. But because it's his son, he musters the troops. And then something happens that doesn't happen a lot in the Bible. You might be even surprised to hear that it's in the Bible, but it's there. 1 Samuel 14:18 says, Saul said to Ahijah, bring the ark of God. At that time, it was with the Israelites. While Saul was talking to the priest, the tumult in the Philistine camp increased more and more. So Saul said to the priest, withdraw your hand. All right, so Saul's first instinct in this situation is we should pray. But then he says, withdraw your hand, which is an ancient Hebrew way of saying, stop praying. You might not have thought that the Bible ever tells us to stop praying, but it does. It does here, and it's the right call. Because Saul looks, and he's like, the ground is shaking. God is moving. Maybe this isn't the moment where I need to like just hold back and check the religious boxes and pray about what God wants me to do next. It's possible that I am staring at exactly what God wants me to do next. It's not the time to pray, it's the time to fight. So withdraw your hand and let's attack. And they do, and it just inspires not only like their own troops, but all these people who are hiding in caves start streaming out of the caves. And then when this massive victory, because one guy, Jonathan, decided that he would do what he could do, and God did what Jonathan could not do. I think it's really easy in life and faith to convince ourselves that we're stuck where we are, that we're stalled out, that we're not making progress because we're waiting on God. Because he's just like not moving right now, and we can't make progress until he does. But often the exact opposite is true, and he's waiting on us. He hasn't taken away every obstacle. He hasn't broken the chains just yet, but he's waiting on us to have the courage to move, to do what we can do, and to trust him for the rest.